God, love people, love people, love people. It's the AC Podcast. For the love of God, love people.
Hello, welcome back to the AC Podcast. My name is Andy Steiger. I'm joined today with Gretchen Huizinga. It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you too.
Well, and not only is it good to be with you, it's good to be in Seattle.
Yes, it is.
We had a wonderful day today in Seattle. The weather is absolutely beautiful. It's fall, so the leaves are changing. And there weren't that many tourists today.
No, we were among the few. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So we went and saw some kind of iconic spots. So we went down to the Fisherman Market. Is that what it's called? I don't even know. Pike's Place.
Pike Place Market.
Yeah.
And the Amazon Spheres, iconic Seattle visual #1.
Right.
Yes.
Where you could even see the Space Needle from there. But I mean, Amazon's facility is unbelievable.
Gorgeous. And then off to Microsoft to take a look at the campus and get lost a little bit.
Yeah, and so we were on Microsoft campus, and this is your old stomping ground.
Yes.
You worked for Microsoft for a number of years as a podcast host.
Well, yes, I was a podcast host for Microsoft Research, which is a little bit different from the company writ large, but yeah.
How long did you do that for?
So I did a pilot series in 2017 and then did a Geek a Week for several years.
Geek a Week. It's one of the things I love about you, Gretchen. You've always got the funniest little saying.
I wanted to name the podcast that, but they said no. So, yeah.
Geek a Week. It was funny, actually, before we even started this podcast, you confessed to me that you are a digital hoarder.
I am.
And
I feel like I'm Gretchen H.
Is it difficult for you to press delete?
It is, until I get to the point where I look at the amount that I have and I embarrass myself. And it's like, okay, that's got to go. I thank it for its service, just taking up digital storage on my phone or the cloud, and then I let it go.
Do you know what my guilty pleasure is? I am also a digital hoarder, but I particularly enjoy hoarding files on my desktop. And it drives people crazy when they see my desktop looks absolutely insane. It's just full of files.
That's embarrassing.
It is. It is.
I feel like there's a meme face for that, like that little girl who's kind of going. It's like, anyway.
So you and I were like, we were seeing some of the touristy spots. We even saw the original Starbucks.
Yeah.
And honestly, we didn't go to Boeing today, but Boeing's out here in Seattle. Like, this isn't the Silicon Valley, but you called it the...
Well, I haven't called it that, but other people have called it the Silicon Forest.
Okay.
Which is a sort of north of Silicon Valley hub of technology, development, and innovation.
Yeah, there's some huge companies here. Yeah. And it was very cool kind of just to see those. I've seen some of these iconic spots before, but I hadn't seen all of them. And in fact, there was one in particular I had never seen before. When we were down walking around, you're like, oh, I got to show you this one spot. And I'm like, oh, okay, this should be interesting. And you took me to something, I believe you called it Gum Alley.
No, it's Post Alley.
A Post Alley.
And it's the Gum Wall, which is expanded beyond the wall to all the walls of Post Alley, to the point where it's a sort of medical or health hazard.
It was fairly gross, like,
yeah.
but amazing all at the same time.
It's sort of beautiful in the same, like, I can't look away kind of thing.
So if you're wondering what this is, it is people chewing gum and then going into this alley and sticking their gum on the wall.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say the thing that you hadn't seen before was the community banana stand in the Amazon Sphere area. And it's like free bananas for everyone. I had not seen that before either. So yeah, I didn't know we were sort of banana vendors.
Today we had a free banana.
We did.
On Amazon free banana.
On Amazon property. On Amazon, banana on Amazon. There's always money in the banana stand.
And I don't even know what to make of that, but I enjoyed my banana.
Good.
Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about today is to GPT or to not GPT. And we're going to get into the subject of AI, which is a big topic to both of us.
Right.
As we both did our PhD on the subject of AI. So why don't you tell our listeners just a little bit about what you did your doctoral work on?
Well, I kind of want to flip that back on you since I've been a podcast host and say you go first on yours because you did yours before me.
When did you graduate?
2022.
Okay, I did.
See?
Yeah, I did. So I finished in 2021 before AI was cool.
Same. I mean, 2022, I was in June, and then the little bot named ChatGPT launched in November of that year. Okay, so yeah, you precede me by a year. So tell us about that.
Yeah, because I mean, I think this is important to even note that for those in the know, I've been interested in AI for a long time. But I think in general, people didn't get interested in AI until 2022 with the launch of ChatGPT.
100%.
Which, by the way, even the way they launched that, I think is hilarious. How they just kind of quietly dropped it on the web and it just exploded.
Well, I do have a talk about this that some have heard where I say it was a low-key research preview just to demonstrate what AI could do and to get their data flywheel going. And they had a company pool that would, bet on how many people would use it. And the most optimistic person said 100,000 users in a week. And in 5 days, they had 1 million. And in 2 months, they had 100 million. So they broke their own web. And This is what got people interested.
Did you see... There was a guy by the name of Thomas, I can't remember his last name, but he prompted ChatGPT. He was one of the first people to use it, and he asked it this question: give me a King James version of how to get my peanut butter sandwich out of the VCR. Have you ever seen this?
I sure haven't.
And it is hilarious. So he posts this thing where it is just this beautiful...
Perfectly spoken...
crafted like it's out of the King James version about how you should get your peanut butter sandwich out of the VCR and to not put it back there again. And
that's awesome.
I remember, so he, it was those sorts of prompts when you're getting that sort of a response that quick, that well crafted, that broke the web, like it exploded. But back to your question, for me, I was interested in the subject of critiquing, in philosophical terms, what we call philosophical reductionism. And I wanted to critique that, and I saw that there was this thinker by the name of Michael Polanyi that was a brilliant, thinker. He was a medical doctor turned physical chemist turned philosopher turned theologian.
Yeah.
And he had just some amazing ways of seeing things. And it just so happened that he was one of those Jews living in Germany during the time when the Nazis took over. And he was one of those Jews that got kicked out. So he fled to the UK and began to teach at Manchester University with Alan Turing. And so Alan Turing, if you're unfamiliar with him, I'm always amazed, by the way, at how many people don't know who Alan Turing is. So he's like the godfather of modern computing. He was seeking to solve a mathematics challenge, a question. Oh, now I can't remember it has a specific name to it. At any rate, in doing so, he came up with the Turing machine, the modern day computer. But Michael Polanyi and Alan Turing would debate each other at Manchester on whether or not a machine could think. So Polanyi said no. Turing said yes. They had a formal debate. And the next year, in response to Michael Polanyi, Alan Turing wrote his famous article in the journal Mind about how to respond to Polanyi, where he came up with the Turing test.
Right.
So the Turing test, or the imitation game, was in response to a challenge given to him by Polanyi, where Polanyi basically said, we don't even know what thinking is, let alone, we can't even define it.
True.
And so Turing said, okay, well, yeah, we can't define it, but if we can imitate it.
Could we fool people?
Could we fool people?
Right.
And so that was my introduction into AI. And so quite a bit of my doctoral work ended up being in the area of artificial intelligence.
So what was the title of your dissertation?
The title of my dissertation was a critique. Basically what I did is, I don't want to get too deep into it, but Polanyi was well known for his epistemology, but he developed an ontology. Nobody had developed that. I wanted to develop his ontology, and it delves into AI.
Interesting.
Because he wanted to make the argument that AI isn't human and can't be human.
I agree with him. I kind of feel like that precursor, that debate between Turing and Polanyi is like a setup for you and me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I might be Turing and you might be. No, I'm Polanyi.
Well, we'll get into that because
yes, we will.
I'm more open towards AI. You're more cautious.
Yeah. At the same time, I see, it's holding two things that are seemingly intractable together. That's kind of where I'm living right now.
From eyeglasses to smartphones, technology is all around us. It always has been. In fact, it's difficult to imagine humanity without it. However, recent advancements, especially in artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI, have connected us to technology in profound ways. With technology that can even mimic humanity, we as followers of Christ must consider what technology is and what role it ought to play in our increasingly digital lives. For this reason, we're excited to head to Burlington, Ontario for the Apologetics Canada Conference, Theology of Technology. Join us November 8th at Glad Tidings Pentecostal Church as we explore a biblical theology of technology. We have some amazing speakers like Andy Steiger, Wesley Huff, Gretchen Huizinga, and they'll be accompanied by some great breakout session speakers. So get your tickets today. Head to apologeticscanada.com/conference25-ON. We can't wait to see you there.
Okay, so I told you about my doctoral work. What was yours?
Okay, one more question on yours. You said you did it in 2021.
I finished in 2021.
Okay, so when did you start?
I started back in, technically I put my proposals forward and everything in 2015. I got started in 2016.
Okay. So for me, I was actually back in 2007, before there was even Instagram. There was no social media. iPhone just came out in 2007. That's when I started, and I was looking at education and technology. And AI was not even a glimmer in Daddy's eye yet. It was, but it wasn't a hot topic. And so it was more device oriented and, putting pads and laptops in classrooms and that kind of thing. So I was like, what is the impact of technical devices and things on education? And did my entire everything but dissertation research and so on in the arc between 2007 and 2012. And then I went into a long period of what I call doc block, where I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do. So I worked for 10 years. And in that time, one of the jobs I got, aside from working at an educational tech company, doing learning management system software and product planning for that, I got a job at Microsoft Research as a podcast host in 2017. And during that time, I started to hear a lot more, because this was the research arm of Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And before all of it all exploded, started to hear more about what they were doing with AI and also the ethics around it. There were people that were working there on what are the dangers of AI, and the topics of bias and privacy and those kinds of things. My entree to it was, all of these people are talking about all of this stuff, both the science, the business, and the ethics of AI from a secular humanist perspective. No God at all. And as a Christian, I'm in this space and I'm thinking, I wonder if there's something God wants to say about this. So one step after another, I started asking the Lord on hikes, what should I do? And he gradually narrowed me in. So in 2021, I started the research, had the proposal, and in a year I had written the whole thing. And the title is Righteous AI, the Christian Voice in the AI Ethics Conversation. Mm-hmm. And so that was June of 2022. And as I mentioned, November of 2022, ChatGPT launches. All of a sudden, everybody's paying attention to the promise and peril of AI and wondering, what is this thing? And now what year is it, 2025? Not even 3 years after it's launched, we're all asking huge questions. And so I just got sort of plunked in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah. We are asking huge questions because back to Polanyi and Turing put forward the imitation game, or the Turing test, and you and I have said this a number of times. That was, I would say, without question, completed in 2022, ChatGPT would easily pass the Turing test as was initially put forward.
Oh, so far beyond.
Yeah.
And you even go back to Joseph Huizinga, who did the ELIZA the very early AI, where his secretary would come in and work with it. And all it was text back and forth, but it was doing psychotherapy, and she asked him to leave the room so she could have a private conversation with the tutor, or not the tutor, but the computer.
Yeah.
It rhymes with tutor. And that's when he got worried and says, I'm not doing this anymore. This is not good.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I want to circle back on that because I think that this is a major issue. Because if you've got machines that can imitate people and can do it very convincingly, what are the implications of that? And I think we're dealing with that currently. One of the things that's interesting about what you're saying with regards to morality in this conversation is during my time in my PhD work, while I was out presenting at various conferences and taking in various conferences, that was the theme I saw over and over and over again, is researchers asking the ethics question. And it's so interesting how society is constantly behind on the ethics question, and particularly even the government. I mean, I remember AI researchers coming to the government going, you should regulate us. You should actually think about what's going on here because I don't think you're paying enough attention.
That's an interesting point, given how much they really wanted to be regulated. It's like coming to your dad and say, punch me before I do something bad. I mean, I think that there's a whole kind of meme about it called ethics theater or ethics washing. Like you take a little bath in ethics water and say we're the good guys. There are companies who broke off of other companies that are calling themselves the good guys, more concerned in putting ethics into their systems. But then you get into that entire rat's nest of whose ethics and whose morals and whose values, which is the same question of values-laden education, or values, whatever they call it. Values education. Because
I remember in the early days with Apple and Google as an example, they took very different stances. I don't know if you remember this, very different stances with regards to AI tech.
Yes.
With regards to, are we going to create machines that help people or that pretend to be people? And Apple said, we're going to actually go more the pretend to be people. Google was the more, we want it to help people, but that is completely shifted now. And now we are seeing tech companies developing these algorithms and machines to imitate people more and more.
Yeah, and I think this is where we're going, whether or not. And I always tend to come up and take the spiritual eye view, God's eye view of it, and thinking, okay, if we really want to talk about kingdoms and worldviews, who's behind some of the work that's going on, and maybe all of the work that's going on in AI? I often refer to these machines as the great hallucinators. And who's the liar and father of lies? The Bible, Satan is looking at this and saying, how can I use this to my benefit, and so on. But I do think there's a weird mix, Andy, of yes, I want to help people, but I also want to see what cool things I can do with technology, right? It's like, could we ever make this look and be, and if their worldview is, we're our savior, because there is no God to save us, why wouldn't that be the end game of, to be our next replacement, right? We're not first, we're not last, we're just next.
Well, I mean, that's one of the weird conversations I keep seeing in the tech industry is almost, it's a form of AI idolatry.
It's AI idolatry.
Yeah. Yes, where there is this worship.
It is.
I know for people that are listening to this, they might not, this may just seem foreign to them, but literally there are people that worship AI. They see it as kind of a god, in that, if it's a super intelligence and it can do everything better than me, right? They're like, well, why wouldn't I worship it?
Right. Yeah, and then you get into the discussion about artificial intelligence, and then the next step, which is everyone's buzzing around now, which is artificial general intelligence. It basically says everything a human can do, a machine can do at human or better levels. Everything. Like not just 8th grade math or are you smarter than a 5th grader, but at Albert Einstein level. In fact, one of the CEOs is calling AI now a country of geniuses in a data center, is what they think of it as. And artificial superintelligence is yet another flavor of big thinking. So I want to flip back and ask you, did you have something else?
Well, yeah, because we got to talk about this.
All right.
Let's talk about this. You probably have something you want to ask me, but let me ask you first. Because let's get into a contentious issue between you and I.
Okay.
Because you and I have been friends for some time now.
Yeah.
We met at a very interesting speaking engagement in Texas.
We did.
Yeah, on the area of artificial intelligence. Maybe we'll leave that for another podcast.
Right.
But at that point, I remember when I met you for the first time, I was like, okay, Gretchen is like a long lost sister I never knew that I had. It's been awesome getting to know you. But you and I have really approached AI a little bit differently in that I've been more open to AI. You've been more cautious towards AI. And I want to delve into that because one of the things I've said to you in the past and you've pushed back on, and so this is your chance to take the gloves off and really come at me.
Ready.
Is I've said, well, Gretchen, it seems like ChatGPT or AI in general, Grok, or, pick your favorite, Gemini or whatever, that these are just the modern calculator, and that we're in a moment where we're now grappling with a new kind of technology that is enhanced our ability to do things like a calculator. And what would be your pushback on that? Would you agree or disagree?
Well, have you ever asked an AI about that question?
I don't think I have. No.
No, because I did. Interestingly, no, I feel like there's two sides to that, because it was at first when ChatGPT came out, people were calling it a calculator for language. Like it skips some steps. You don't have to know all the stuff. It gives you you prompt it and it gives you some stuff that's very good, very useful, very helpful. But it goes beyond the calculator, and I've said this in terms of other sort of disruptive technologies, in that none of the others tried to fool us into thinking it's one of us. A calculator was a thing you used to do mathematics and shorten some of your calculations. It's a calculator. And AI is a different beast in that, going back to Turing's test where it's, can it fool me? I'm not in a space where I would be fooled by it, but I'm certainly shocked and surprised. And I know, living here and being kind of connected to some of the scientists, that they're saying they're shocked. And we don't even see what they see. Like there's stuff going on right now where they're talking about emergent intelligence. And now this gets back to the other question that we have thought about. Can a machine actually think?
Yeah, before we go there, one thing I just want to clarify for listeners is when we're talking about the Turing test or the imitation game, and you say, can it convince us? The question is, just so everybody's clear on this, can it convince you that you're talking to a person?
Yes.
Like that was what Turing really put forward.
He did.
Is, do you realize that it's not a machine? And if you don't realize it's a machine, then it passed the test or the imitation game, right? Because it was imitating a person,
right,
and doing so well that you were convinced. So we are now at a time where technology is getting better and better at doing that. I mean, do you remember the movie Her?
I do.
I remember when that movie first came out. It was science fiction. Like,
it's not anymore.
Right? Could a person fall in love with their phone? Now we don't even question whether or not that's possible. No. And you know what we question now from the movie? If you remember, do you remember what his job was in the movie?
I don't.
He was a professional author that wrote greeting cards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like love notes or whatever people. Now the joke of the movie is, could you actually make a living as a writer living in the city? Right. No, that's sci-fi. But could you fall in love with your phone? Absolutely. I don't think anybody's questioning that.
No, and the other sort of parallel stream film that came out was Ex Machina, where it embodied AI to the point. I mean,
it was a modern version of the Turing test.
Yes.
Yeah. It was a full Turing test.
Sure. And if they do know the imitation game, they probably know the film, and they probably think Alan Turing is Benedict Cumberbatch. But that's our world that we live in today.
Honestly, that movie just infuriates me, because there's a movie about Alan Turing called The Imitation Game, but the movie has nothing to do with the Turing test, because it's about him in World War II and cracking
it was the Enigma machine.
Yeah, the Enigma machine. So,
which was a precursor. Okay, so we were talking about ASI and AGI and the varying trajectories that the companies that are jockeying for pole position in becoming a utility, right? Literally everyone uses my chatbot. It's become the Kleenex of the AI chatbot world.
People are embracing the use of these technologies incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
And I would say for good and for bad. Okay. Now, I know you wanted to ask me a question about consciousness, so we'll circle back on that in a moment.
Okay. If both of us remember.
We'll remember. But I don't know if you remember when we did that speaking engagement in Texas, we did that with John Lennox.
And Gary Habermas.
Who
kept saying, "Why am I here?"
And we're still not sure why he was there.
I love him.
Yeah. But the question, I don't know if you remember this, the question that they asked us at the end, the audience asked, what's your greatest concern?
What's your greatest fear? What are you afraid of?
Yes. Now, I don't know if you remember my answer to that, but my answer to that was loneliness. My greatest fear of AI was loneliness, that in a culture in which you have machines that are increasingly programmed to imitate people and are incredibly good at that, that you're going to outsource relationships and you're just going to exacerbate an already problematic culture with regards to loneliness. We already live in a loneliness epidemic.
Yes.
Hey, Andy Steiger here from Apologetics Canada, and I want to quickly recommend a new book for you by a good friend of mine, Rod Bergen. This just came out, called Under the Halo, Examining the Legacy of William Brandeman. My friend Rod was in this cult for nearly 40 years before he came out. Sadly, there are still millions of people that are involved in this. And this book really is accumulation of the research that he did as he was examining what was being taught and whether or not it was true. From unique stories of glowing clouds to children being raised from the dead, and did they prove that Brandeman was a prophet, to wildly entertaining story that I would highly recommend you read. You can get this book wherever books are sold. I highly recommend it. Get your copy today. So, I mean, that's my greatest fear. And I would still keep that answer. And I, if anything, Gretchen, I would argue that time has shown that I've been pretty accurate.
I think that's true.
What about you, though?
What did I say then?
Yeah, and would you hold to it now?
Let me expand on yours.
Okay.
Because I think you're right. But I think after the word outsource, the word is everything. We are outsourcing relationships. We're outsourcing morality. We're outsourcing now our cognitive abilities. And it's starting to depend. I mean, everybody has made the comparison to the movie WALL-E, where you see those floating fat people, and all they did was, pick red or blue, or there's political overtones there, and they have to fight back for control of their lives. And I think, loneliness is one of the threads of things that the technologists are trying to convince us that their machines are going to alleviate. Facebook was started as a connecting people kind of thing.
That's the irony.
Many, many friends. And now it's been very true. We know these are all...
Like Character AI is a prime example.
Exactly.
They have promised, listen, our chatbots are actually going to solve the loneliness epidemic.
Yeah. There's a company called Replica where you can have an AI friend or girlfriend or whatever. I mean, and the promise is you don't get any friction. You don't get any tension. And for sort of that, let's go into the romantic world, and that's a nice way of putting what I'm talking about. You've got relationships where nobody sasses you back. Nobody ignores you watching a football game. Nobody, but it's mostly the men that will get an AI companion, and they don't give you what a normal girlfriend would give you.
So let me ask you some questions then.
Sure.
Do you chat GPT?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't. I grok.
Okay. So you do use AI.
Right.
And when we're talking AI is in all sorts of things.
Okay.
But we're talking very specifically
Let
here.
me differentiate something here. The two streams of AI that I actually speak about, but I focus on the personal, because this is the one we have agency over. Like, I can choose to use it or not. The other systems, which governments and corporations use to collect, track, and infer from our data, and to feed their models, their AI models, that's used on us, not by us. We don't have much, unless we just go off the grid, right? We're not using any computer applications at all. So the GPT question, started out different for me and it's morphing even as we speak, because I'm really paying attention to it. And in part because I've come out of and am working with educators who were the first to panic.
Yeah.
Like huge panic. Yeah. In part because this is disrupting the education industrial complex, but also because students can cheat with impunity.
Yeah, if you're not in education right now, it is a mess.
Yeah. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, and I'm in the midst of it. I teach one class a year, and so I've seen it.
Yeah.
I had a student last year, because I'm trying to be creative in the way I do assignments to try to get the students to not use
right.
An AI algorithm. But they used it was an analysis paper, and they used ChatGPT the whole way through it. Mm-hmm. But then they cited it as though that was acceptable to do.
Right. And even now you're using ChatGPT as the default bot. And it probably is for most people, but I just want to say there's Claude, there's Gemini, there's Grok, there's ChatGPT, and then there's the outlier Copilot that Microsoft has. But here's the thing. The more I can use it, this is where I've landed on it recently, the less I want to, because I'm trading my voice. And because of the work I do, I could have it write my talks. And I don't, for the record, because I want to struggle. I want to force myself to think. And that is what education, I think that's the tension now and the hurdle to overcome is, will we then do the whole, you use the calculator analogy. Did that ruin math? Not necessarily, but it certainly did.
It changed the way we had to teach math.
Totally did. But this is different even.
See, because sometimes I feel like we're living in a moment right now where it's like ChatGPT or the AI calculator moment, where what I would call it, instead of like a math calculator, it's a facts calculator.
Sure.
sort of idea.
But are they facts? And that's the hallucination problem.
Yeah, and there are those challenges. One area where I'm seeing AI being used in education as an example is, so somebody, maybe they don't use AI to write their essay, but then they'll use AI to edit their essay.
Sure.
Where I could see that being beneficial. It may even give you some prompts saying, hey, you could use this word instead, and that sort of thing.
And there's two sides to that. One is to have AI edit you, and the other is to have AI write and you edit. Because somebody's going to have to edit.
Right.
It's still there as a thing.
Although it makes you wonder if that's going to be a skill that we're going to lose.
Editing or writing?
Maybe both.
I was going to say yes.
It kind of, because it reminds me, we once had the skill
Yeah.
of remembering phone numbers.
Right.
And many of us had lots of phone numbers we had memorized. I have I can barely remember my own, Gretchen.
675-1275. That was my phone number.
Sixth
grade.
I can still remember my phone number growing up as a kid, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go back to GPT or not to GPT.
Yeah.
And that is, do you or don't you? Should you or shouldn't you? I think this is where a lot of people are swimming right now.
So I use it a little bit.
Okay.
Which I think surprises a lot of people, since I did my PhD in this topic.
Right.
I'm not overly attracted to AI, to be honest.
You're not, but you're not the demographic that I'm worried about.
Right. Because that's interesting. So why would you say that, though? I have my reasons, but I'm curious why you said it.
Oh, well, you already know how to do all this stuff.
That's what I would say.
And so for you to use it, you wield a different kind of power over it that my 26-year-old daughter and her friends, and then let's go back even younger than that. Your youngest son is still in high school and your oldest is just starting university.
Yeah.
It's a different world that they're entering, and everyone's trying to figure out, well, how do we even prepare young people for a world that doesn't exist? We don't know what it's going to look like. And the AI makers are saying it's going to be so much more, so much bigger, so much more crazy. Go back to the ChatGPT or not to. That's a riff on Shakespeare's Hamlet, right? To GPT or not to GPT.
Yeah.
And I say that is not the question. I'll paraphrase yet again. The more I think about it, the more I feel like a question from another Shakespeare play, King Lear, is more relevant. And that is when he's in a point of existential crisis, he yells out, not my kingdom for a horse, that's Richard III, but is man no more than this? Is man no more than this? And I think that speaks to the question we're all asking, which is a cliche. What does it mean to be human in the age of AI? But that question of, is this all I am now? Just an editor for a bot? Or everything that would make me feel creative, feel like I'm fulfilling what God created me to be, I have somebody to outsource it to, from back to the relationships and everything. Therapy is another one. I have a young woman I know who's using ChatGPT as a therapist. Why? Because it's free, and it's also effective for her. Eric Schmidt, who used to be the CEO of Google, he basically argued with a woman who says the human touch in therapy is important, that I'm talking to someone who cares about me face to face. He says, no, my argument is that a bot has access to all of the best writing, thinking, therapy, PhDs in psychotherapy or whatever, if that's what you're talking about. This isn't my gig anyway. But he says that one person has only her own or his own degree and scope. Now, the other thing is, though, won't that person now have access to all of it through ChatGPT and get down to what you were talking about earlier today about the border? Is this legal? Can they bring this camera gear into... People are outsourcing everything to these machines.
And so what Gretchen's talking about is when we came across the border from Canada to the US to film, the border guards weren't even sure if we were allowed to come and do that, so they had to Google it, which I just thought was hilarious.
Which is another Kleenex word. Google is a verb. You want to become the verb in whatever industry you're competing in. But anyway, so let's keep going.
So I think then a question that a lot of people struggle with is, should you use things like Grok or GPT and the like? And if you do, how do you use it in a way that is healthy and not unhealthy? Because one of the things that I would say with regards to, say, counseling as an example, I have a sister who's a counselor, and one of the things that she'll often say, and I've heard this from many other counselors, is one of the big problems that we have, this isn't true of everybody, so I'm not generalizing this, but one thing that we do understand is that people need friends. And they need close friends. And if we actually had better friends, we'd probably need less counselors. And so my question is like, okay, so is counseling actually about information, or is it more about relationship?
Yes.
And I guess what ultimately I'm saying is going back to my point, that we need community. And here's the part that I think is interesting, Gretchen. Every other aspect of our life, we think artificial is not good.
100%.
I don't want to eat artificial food, for example. But why is it that I'm quite okay with artificial community?
Here's the thing. The term artificial is the one that's been imposed on us. It was coined in 1956 by the Dartmouth conference guys, and they just made up artificial intelligence. And so it's really machine intelligence that we're talking about. It's calculation of next word prediction. That's what we're working with now. Really sophisticated, really good. But I think the point of your question is, why are we fine with this digital mediation, whether it's through an AI chatbot or whether it's through social media, whether it's through our computer screens? The last 3 times we've talked has been over Zoom. People meet on Teams, all of these different things. And I think COVID set us up for a bunch more, a bigger use of that kind of technology and normalized it even more. So I wonder if we're just in a new space where, and that space is an actual word because geography keeps us from each other, and we can still have relationship. We've had great talks over Zoom. But it didn't start here. It started with telephones, where you could have, and telegraphs. So you go further back on how do we shrink distance and keep relationship. What AI is doing, though, is not us and a friend. It is us and a machine, a bot. So I think that's a key question.
It is. And that's one of the reasons why when I think of those types of machines, I call them, it's an imitation machine. It is a human imitation machine. Like that is its purpose. Its purpose is to pretend to be human. But the thing though that we have to be careful of as humans is we have a propensity to anthropomorphize
Everything.
right? Everything, to give human characteristics to things. And so it's almost like we want to be tricked into thinking that these algorithms are actually persons and that I'm in a relationship. And I've met a lot of people that have a relationship with ChatGPT, and there's been a number of news articles about it, that it's a growing concern how easy people get swept up into relationships with these algorithms.
Let me go biblical on it for a minute, because I was just thinking about this concept of creation of beings and how God created us and then literally gave us autonomy, right? Mm-hmm. We are now creating autonomous agents. There's a difference between automated and autonomous. And what autonomous means is that nobody's controlling it. It makes its own decisions. It's responsible for its own decisions and so on. And so I think what you've just described is us stepping into the role of creator with a machine because we can.
Yeah.
And then taking it to what's the next. I mean, literally, when I spoke to the scientists at Microsoft Research, one of the things that was driving them was the fact that, hey, could we? Yeah. If we can, we should. We'll let the ethicists, the priests, whatever, figure out that even the policymakers and the governments, that's not our job. They sort of outsourced their responsibility for sort of like the nuclear technology.
Yeah.
Which came back to haunt everyone. But I do think that there's an element to answer your question, at least in my mind, is we now are in the role of God. And we like the idea of could we create an autonomous being, but we don't like the fact that we can't control it. And we're not sovereign like God is sovereign. So our creations come back to bite us. And this has been themes in films and literature for centuries, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of the underlying.
Would that be one of your fears?
Okay, so back to the answer about what biggest fear was.
Yeah.
And so if we remember that panel, he asked you first, then he asked Gary, then he skips to me because John Lennox is the big gun and he's going to answer last. And I said to Mark, because he goes, what's your fear? And I said, well, I was going to use the Holy Spirit as part of my answer and answer last, but I'll go ahead and do it. And then John laughed. I said, I'm not really afraid because God's bigger than all of it. Mm. Now, that was a glib answer. I really do believe that answer, but John Lennox said he fears a totalitarian world in which we cannot, and this gets into Revelation 13, you can't do commerce, you can't eat at a restaurant, you get restricted by the fact that you haven't bought into that system. Yeah. Whether that's the mark of the beast, I don't know, but it certainly has flavors of that, right? So that is somewhat of a fear, is like right now, on any app, whether it's AI or not, you click accept. All the stuff that you don't read says, here's what I'm giving you in exchange for the ability to use this application. And I like it because it's convenient and it tells me where I am. I don't need a map. I don't, those kinds of things. Yeah. But I've already given you all my data and permission to use it to train. I think, maybe this is wrong, but if they say it's not true, but I think who says it's not?
Yeah.
They do. So I feel like we're being groomed, shepherded into a space where we will want to use these things because we won't be able to do things without it. This is my fear, right? I don't want to trade my voice. I don't want to trade the struggle for writing or thinking or discerning. And there's a bunch of biblical things that we shouldn't be trading off in exchange for the convenience of this machine, which ultimately may say, you can't do anything without me.
Well, I think one thing that we're seeing that we've never seen before is a new type of drug.
Ooh.
And it's a digital drug. I know many people who won't use TikTok as an example.
Right.
Because it's so addictive.
Well, and that's what made me think when you
that's AI.
I know. When you were just talking about do you use it or not, and you said a little bit, I'm thinking, can you use a little bit of heroin? I mean, once you start, you're not addicted immediately, although some people say you are. Some people say it's so incredible that you want it next again. And I just wonder, is this digital heroin?
I would say, in many ways, yeah. Mm-hmm. With doom scrolling is a thing. Like, and I'm amazed. Like, honestly, okay, like confession time. If I'm traveling someplace and I'm having trouble staying awake because of jet lag, I'm shocked that you can, it has its limits, but you can go on like Instagram and scroll on Instagram and be amazed. Like, it can wake you up.
Yeah.
And to me, that's quite powerful.
Well, and they say don't go on your blue screen for X amount of hours before you go to bed. Nobody does that. We fall asleep to our phones. Go back to that though. There's a guy at Harvey Mudd College that I love. He's writing a blog called The Absent-Minded Professor. His name's Josh Brake, and he just dropped a blog that talks about when efficiency is not good. And AI's entire value proposition is to make you more productive, to let you get work done that you have to get done, so that what? You have free time to do more meaningful, more human, more productive.
More scrolling.
Yeah. Well, and he says, what do you do with the margin? Which is, I thought, was such a great question. And if we all really looked at history, we would look at all of the machines that promised us more leisure and say, are we actually more busy now or less busy now? Do we? And if we're not busy because we've done the work part of our work day, what do we do with our time? More screen time. I don't see anybody putting their phone or their Netflix down and saying, let's do something different. I think we're going to have to do that. But I think AI is going to make it harder and harder and harder for us to do that because of the lure to worship at the altar of the god of productivity, or productivity, if you're in Canada.
I agree. The thing I think is interesting, though, is you and I have talked about this. You're pretty cautious about AI, or even, dare I say, negative towards it, but yet you use it.
Yes.
So help me understand that.
Okay, so I also will say I'm not the demographic I'm worried about.
Okay. Because you're saying that you use it in a different way that younger generations use it.
I know I do. And also, I'm a really good writer. Okay, and that's part of what I do. That's not me patting myself on the back.
I can confirm it. The stuff I've seen you write has been fantastic.
So I'm not writing a book, and you know why? Because I want people to read this book, not my book, for real. But I do think I have a discernment, both spiritually and sort of life experience-wise, that understands why it matters that you're able to struggle through something and then come out on the other side. It isn't just with creative work, it's biblical, right? Is that there's nothing that says, this is going to be an easy road, Christianity. You're going to have to fight for things. You're going to have to overcome. You're going to have to pray. You're going to have to get in the Word. You're going to have to wrestle with deep theological issues if you care to grow as a Christian. And you'll be confronted with persecution. What are you going to do? Well, AI is giving us an ecosystem of ease, a frictionless existence. And it's telling young people all the things that it's also telling older people, but it's landing differently when you haven't had to struggle.
You know, I think this is a good place for us to tell listeners that you and I are actually working on a resource that's going to be coming out in 2026. And it's a resource to help teachers and educators know how to navigate AI and ways to use it and things to avoid. So I'm really looking forward to producing that with you and seeing that come together. I'm saying that now because if there's anybody listening to this, then you would be like to get access to that. Feel free to reach out to us at Apologetics Canada. We'll put you on a list and make sure that you get early access to that material as it comes out.
One other thing I would add to that, how do teachers engage and how does...
And you were a teacher, by the way, for a number of years.
I was in Abbotsford for years. Yeah. For me, it gets down to the point of, in Ezekiel, where the Lord is looking for someone to stand in the gap, stand in the breach. Usually people stop there, but the next verse says, but I found no one. And then, therefore, smote. But that said, I think where I live with this right now, in answer to the deep answer to your question, is I'm not negative about AI or afraid of AI. I'm mad at AI. I'm like, I'm not going down. I'm not going gentle into that good night. I want to encourage other people, especially believers, to say, look, this is a big stand for us. If you look at Ephesians chapter 6, we're supposed to suit up with the full armor of God, not to, Leroy Jenkins it, but to stand. He says that word several times. And I think not letting ourselves get so drawn in to using these chatbots, the AI that we have the option to use, is actually a call.
So what I hear you saying, for clarity, is that these devices, these algorithms can be used for good, but they can be used for great harm, and we need to be cautious. Like here's what I'm thinking. When you said what you said, okay, I'm not thinking to myself when I go use ChatGPT to ask a question about
I know. There's a lot of good reasons.
There's lots of ways that I use it that I find very helpful. But then I see apps like Pastor Ron's app that came out. And if people haven't seen this, you can pay the low fee of $49 a month so that you can have your quote own personal pastor, where he will pray for you. Again, this imitation machine.
It's a machine.
Yes, will pray for you, will counsel you, and pretend to be your personal pastor. And to me, I would say, and I would take a very hard stand and say, that is antithetical to Christianity and is incredibly harmful.
I agree. But I also think that back to the question of, well, I'll dip my toe. And I do. So I may be, a walking conundrum, a walking, what is the word?
Contradiction?
Yes, but there's a biblical word for it, and I can't remember. I'll ask ChatGPT. That is where I go sometimes when I can't. And it's better than a search engine. It is. But I go, all right, once it starts to do these good tasks, these things that I wouldn't have an argument with about, right? Like take these 3 pages I wrote and shrink it down to an executive summary for me. And it does that really fast and really well, but it's my stuff. Once I start to agree that that's a good use for it, then the slippery slope of the sinful use of it, which I would say having it write something and then you say that you did it, that's where
plagiarism.
Yeah, but is it though? Like people are saying it's not, because it's not taking one person's writing and calling it yours.
No, I'm saying when you're saying that it's you. Yeah,
that's more about attribution, like not admitting that the machine did it instead of you doing. And this is where I'm saying, it used to be on Instagram, if you posted a picture back in the day when Instagram actually showed you content from other people that you knew, instead of it just being a bunch of reels from people you didn't know, and commercials. Back in the day, if you posted a great picture and it was beautiful and you didn't do anything to it, you put hashtag no filter, right?
Right.
And if you didn't, if you put filters on it to make it look better, you didn't put hashtag no filter.
We'll have hashtag no AI.
Or hashtag no LLM. And people are already saying that now. It's like, I want people to know that I did this. We haven't even gotten into, and we probably don't have time to get into, the visual, the multimodal bots that are now capable of making films and
all sorts of stuff. And again, we all can see how it can be used for good. We can see how it can be used for harm. It brings me back to what you said earlier. It's this distinction between can we do it versus should we do it. And that's where it just seems like caution's constantly thrown to the wind, and we just go, okay, if you can do it, then you should do it. And we find ourselves in one moral dilemma after another.
Right. And so, kind of wrapping it up, I think as Christians, we are countercultural to begin with, always have been. And what do we do then in this particular time, at such a time as this? And if we don't have, this is from an apologetics perspective, what we're facing is hallucinations and lies. I call it the great hallucinator and Satan and so on. He's very eager to use this tool to either get us into a sin mode or to fool us into a lot of different behaviors that aren't good. I think we have to anchor ourselves in prayer first and in the Word of God second, and train ourselves on truth and righteousness. And Paul writes to Timothy, the Word of God, he praises Timothy for knowing the Word of God, and then says all Scripture is God-breathed, useful for correction. What are the other ones that is? But also,
reproof.
Thank you, because you're the pastor, ... and training for righteousness. And I feel like if we look at ourselves as an LLM, one of God's creation, what's our training data? And if we have the Bible as our training data, it is training us for righteousness, which allows us to be ethical and good in comparison to the rest of the world. And I think that might include standing athwart, getting sucked into the chatbot cycle of just outsourcing everything.
Well, it's been great talking to you. We could talk so much more on this subject. We didn't even get into the area of consciousness.
I know.
We'll save that for another podcast.
No, I want to ask you one. Okay, because we had a little disagreement about it in Abbotsford about AI personhood and robot rights. Right. And we were kind of on two sides of it. I was like, it's a one-word answer, no. But you actually had some nuance to it that I thought was interesting. And so I would like to hear that again, and maybe you can sway me a little.
Yeah, and it would be fun to do a whole podcast on the topic of consciousness and rights and the like. But my big thing is that humans have dignity and rights, and they're inherent to humanity. In other words, we didn't discover them, we didn't invent them, we encountered them. And that we don't, and that we must be very cautious to give those away, because if you give them away, it means that something has qualified for it.
Right.
And if something can qualify for it, can unqualify for it. And so whenever we begin to give our rights away or bestow rights onto things like machines, human rights, it then leaves us in danger of unqualifying for these rights. And that's why people in the past said, listen, they're inherent. They're inherent. You were born with it. You didn't qualify for it. By the very nature of being human, you have these.
Right. So it does sound like we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But do you think that...
I guess the one difference maybe is that I don't have a problem with thinking that a machine could develop a machine level of consciousness in the future. I don't have a problem with that, but I wouldn't say that that's human.
Right.
In the same way that I don't have a problem with my dog having a dog level consciousness, or even a cockroach having a cockroach level consciousness.
Right. But again, I'm going to circle back to you're not the target audience. And you have the discernment, you have the wisdom, you have the years, you have the Bible, you have all of that to help you to understand that it's not human.
Right.
And that there's a lot of people in the world who have none of that. They're absolutely biblically ignorant.
And that's the problem. And goes back to actually Michael Polanyi. They're working from a reductive physicalist worldview.
Yeah.
Right. And within that causes a whole lot of problems once we get into AI, because it's going to affect the way you come at it ethically.
Right.
Yeah. And I do see that. And man, there's so many more things I want to say though about this, because I want to qualify a lot of what I just said to kind of show the boundaries of how I do that kind of thinking.
Right.
We will do it in another podcast though, for sure. Where could people go if they want to learn more about you?
I have a very ungrand website called GretchenHuizinga.com that just kind of tells about what I do. And there's one talk of mine on YouTube that is Apologetics Canada. Yeah,
and in fact, you're going to be with us again out in Ontario. We've got a couple of events coming out there. So check us out online. You can come out, and then you'll be with us again this next year out in, got 2 conferences
Wellington
happening in British Columbia.
And Abbotsford, yeah.
Thank you, Gretchen. It's been so great being here in Seattle. Thanks for showing me around. And for letting me hang out in your house and do the podcast.
Yeah, the gum wall was a highlight.
It's going to haunt me, actually. Thank you for listening to the AC Podcast. This has been a ministry of Apologetics Canada. We will come back next week with more things to think about. Until then, you know the drill. Love God, love people. Bye for now.